Breaking news for December 23rd, 2025. Russia has lost another 1,420 troops, PLUS, 23 artillery systems in Ukraine. Hisparen, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest deep dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, well, the sheer brutal arithmetic of this war.
And more importantly, how Ukraine is taking that pressure and turning it right back on Moscow, sometimes thousands of kilometers behind the actual front lines.
Yeah, let's start with that number, 1,420 personnel in a single day. That pushes the total number of Russian losses to, what, almost 1.2 million?
It's getting incredibly close. And you have to wonder, how does a country sustain that? That's the real strategic question for us.
And it leads right into our first big point. There's this massive disconnect, this lie at the heart of the Russian command structure. We're hearing that President Putin is getting these rosy battlefield reports.
Reports that are completely detached from reality.
Exactly. Which then fuels his maximalist demands and keeps this meat grinder going.
And while that internal deception is happening, Ukraine is striking back in a very different way. We're talking about high-value operations happening deep inside Russia.
Deep is right. An assassination of a lieutenant general right in Moscow just this week.
Right. And it's not just people. It's new Ukrainian tech hitting Russia's economy, its navy, its air power. It's a completely asymmetric response.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack what these catastrophic losses really mean for hotspots like Pokrovsk and whether any of this battlefield reality is making its way into the so-called peace talks. Okay, so let's zero in on the numbers for December 23rd. We mentioned the 1,420 personnel, but what else?
Well, the equipment losses are just as telling. We're looking at 8 tanks, 20 armored fighting vehicles, and a really staggering 23 artillery systems.
23 artillery pieces in one day.
In a single day. That points to incredibly effective Ukrainian counter-battery fire. They're finding and hitting Russian guns with, precision strikes, probably drone-corrected.
And it tells you something about Russia's strategy, right? They're just pushing forward no matter the cost.
Absolutely. They're accepting these insane costs to maintain pressure before winter really sets in. Remember, on December 17th, they lost over 1,700 troops. So this is the new normal for them.
A new normal that has brought their total losses to nearly 1.2 million. It's a demographic black hole.
It is, which makes President Putin's statements just a few days ago even more bizarre. He was publicly claiming Russia had seized Seversk, Vovchansk, and big chunks of Lyman.
But that's not what the open source intelligence says at all.
Not even close. The Institute for the Study of War hasn't confirmed any of those claims. And if you look at Lyman, for example, pro-Russian mill bloggers are maybe claiming 7% of the town. The reality is likely far less.
So the battlefield is consuming over 1,000 men a day for almost no gain, but the message from the top is one of victory. Who is feeding Putin this information?
And that is the absolute core of the problem. Reports we're seeing suggest there's this pervasive culture of lying inside the military.
A competition to be the most optimistic.
Exactly. You have senior leaders, figures like General Gerasimov, who are apparently fabricating reports just to stay in favor. They tell Putin what he wants to hear.
And what he wants to hear is that his war of attrition is working.
Precisely. It creates this vicious feedback loop. The military lies, Putin believes the lies, and then he bases his entire strategy and his negotiation position on a complete fantasy.
Well, a few sober heads in the economic ministries are probably screening that the country is running out of resources.
Right. But their voices are being drowned out. This internal deception is what's driving the war forward, despite the completely unsustainable cost.
So if the Russian system is only listening to itself, maybe the only way to get its attention is to hit it where it really hurts. Which brings us to these deep strikes.
Yeah, let's talk about Ukraine's asymmetric campaign. This is all about disrupting what's called command and control, or C2.
You take out the commanders, the whole system starts to fray.
You got it. And there's no clearer example than the assassination of Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov on December 22nd. This wasn't on the front line.
No, this was a car bomb in Moscow City, the heart of their military and financial district.
It's a massive psychological blow and a huge security failure. It tells the Russian elite that nowhere is safe.
And it's not a one-off. We've seen a pattern of targeting high-ranking officers. Independent sources confirm something like over 6,000 officer deaths since the war began.
including 12 generals. And when you remove a guy like Sarvarov, who was in charge of operational training for the entire general staff, you create chaos. You're forcing them to use less experienced people, which leads to more mistakes and more losses on the front.
The campaign is also hitting critical infrastructure, right? Air power is a big one.
A huge one.
Yeah.
We saw sabotage at Lipetsk airfield with two Su-30s set on fire. Then drone strikes on Belbek airfield, taking out Su-27s and a MiG-31.
And these aren't just any planes.
No, these are the modernized jets that drop the guided bombs on Ukrainian cities. Taking them out on the ground saves lives and protects infrastructure. It's incredibly efficient.
We're seeing the same efficiency at sea. The SBU's Subsea Baby drone hitting that Kilo-class submarine.
Right. In Novorossiysk on December 15th, that submarine is a launch platform for Caliber cruise missiles. You damage that, you force the whole Black Sea fleet to pull back, to be more cautious. It shrinks their ability to threaten Ukraine.
All of this requires some pretty advanced tech, and we're finally getting confirmation on Ukraine's own mass-produced cruise missile, the BARS.
The BARS is a genuine strategic game changer. It's jet-powered, has a range of 700 or 800 kilometers.
But the key is mass production.
That's the key. It's made of composite materials, which means they can churn them out fast. We're talking hundreds of units a day. This gives Ukraine a sustainable way to strike deep inside Russia.
So they're not just relying on limited Western supplies for these deep strikes anymore.
Exactly. They are building their own capacity to degrade Russian air defenses, logistics, and energy hubs. They're trying to dismantle the Russian war machine faster than Russia can rebuild it.
And to see what all that pressure actually looks like on the ground, we have to zoom in on the battle for Pokrovsk. It's just been this 120-day meat grinder.
It really is. Pokrovsk is the perfect microcosm of this attrition. The whole battlefield is dominated by drones. Any large formation of armor is basically a death sentence.
And we saw a pretty clear, pretty brutal example of that just on December 22nd.
We did. Near a town called Fedorivka, the Russians launched a company-sized mechanized assault, about 24 armored vehicles.
But they tried something new, didn't they, with motorcycles?
They did. They added 11 motorcycles and quad bikes to the assault. The thinking was, these are smaller, faster targets, harder for FPV drones to hit.
An interesting idea. How did it work out for them?
It was a total catastrophic failure. In just 100 minutes.
100 minutes.
The entire assault was dismantled. Ukrainian forces, including the Azov National Guard, destroyed 8 tanks, 18 IFVs, 5 APCs, and 10 of the 11 quad bikes.
So the new tactic didn't work?
Not at all. It just proves that against a well-prepared defense with drone-corrected fire, these kinds of conventional armored pushes are practically obsolete. It's suicide.
And while Russia is literally grinding its armored forces into dust near Pokrovsk, Ukrainians are actually on the offensive elsewhere.
Right. Over in the Kupiansk sector, Ukrainian forces have actually broken through Russian lines. They've liberated several towns, Kidroshivka, Radkivka, and have reportedly encircled around 200 Russian troops.
Which is a direct contradiction of Putin's claims that Russia was the one advancing there?
A complete contradiction. It just underscores the theme. Even when Russia does make a game, like finally taking Siversk, it took them 41 months to advance 12 kilometers. The cost is astronomical for inches of ground.
So all of this brutal fighting is happening while diplomats are trying to talk. There were meetings in Miami recently, right?
Yes. U.S., Ukrainian, and Russian delegations. President Zelensky has said Ukraine has a 20-point plan that's about 90% complete.
And what's the focus of that plan?
It's all about building a self-sufficient, secure Ukraine for the long term. A funded army of 800,000, a clear path to EU accession, and a solid security coalition with Western partners.
Okay, that sounds concrete. What about the Russian side?
Well, they rejected a U.S. proposal for a Christmas ceasefire, for starters. And they're just repeating the same maximalist demands. Full Ukrainian withdrawal from the 4 annexed regions, no NATO, complete demilitarization. It's a non-starter.
It seems like the reality of their losses on the battlefield just hasn't sunk in at the political level.
Not at all. And to add to that, they're running what we'd call a northern cognitive warfare campaign.
Explain that. You're talking about those small cross-border attacks in places like Sumy.
Exactly. The little incursions like the seizure of Herbovsky, these aren't serious military offensives. They don't have the troops or logistics for that.
So what's the point?
The point is the information. It's warfare fought in the media space. They do it to create headlines that make it look like the Ukrainian front is collapsing. It's designed to pressure Kyiv and its allies to make concessions.
And in the middle of this information war, real people get hurt.
Terribly.
Yeah.
We have reports that Russian forces forcibly deported about 50 civilians, mostly elderly people, from Pribovsky into Russia.
Which is a flagrant war crime.
A clear violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. It's just a reminder that behind the military lies and the strategic posturing, there are real atrocities and immense human suffering happening every single day.
So as we wrap this up, with these staggering losses and the huge gap between reality and diplomacy, let's focus on the most immediate threat.
Okay.
President Zelensky just issued a warning. He said Russia is likely planning massive strikes against Ukraine's energy sector, specifically between December 23rd and the 25th.
Right, over the Christmas period.
And he mentioned a critical shortage of air defense systems.
And that really brings us to the final provocative question, doesn't it? It's a race. Can Ukraine's new deep strike capability, with things like the Bars missile, degrade Russia's ability to launch these attacks faster than Russia could destroy what's left of Ukraine's power grid?
And there isn't much left to destroy.
Not much. 64% of their pre-war capacity is already gone. So the margin for error is basically zero. For Kiev, sustaining their own pressure on Russian command and logistics isn't just about winning, it's about surviving the winter.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Arya, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.